Good Monday afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be with you on a Monday at the start of Commencement Week. My name is Sofia Almeda. I am the University Registrar here at utrgv, and our office is one of many very excited to be hosting Commencement again after more than a year that we've had graduates to celebrate on site. So thank you for joining us. As a reminder, you can ask questions in the chat area, and I will get to them as quickly as I can, but I'll do a quick recap just as a reminder for some of you who may be newer to the conversation. But remember, this Friday, May 7th, we'll be celebrating our Spring 2021 and eligible Summer 2021 graduates in the Edinburgh campus. And then on Saturday, we'll be in Brownsville celebrating those same 2021 graduates. And then next week on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, beginning the 13th, we'll celebrate all of our certified graduates from 2020. So we will have commencement ceremonies on the Brownsville campus on Thursday, the 13th, followed by ceremonies in Edinburgh on Friday and Saturday, the 14th and 15th. So again, really excited, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into the questions because I'm sure you all have plenty. So bear with me. I know sometimes I may not get to questions as fast as you can ask them, but I will certainly get to as many as I possibly can. So we are being asked about ceremonies which are happening outdoors and whether there will be tents available. It is completely outdoors. There will be no tents. So definitely dress in cool clothing because the graduation gown is just another layer of clothing, of course. So make sure that you're comfortable underneath and think about light materials and things like that that won't absorb too much heat. Masks are definitely still going to be required, especially of you all as graduates. So do plan accordingly. That mask can be either something that covers your mouth if you prefer a shield and think that that's more comfortable. That's perfectly acceptable as well. And we do have a question from Jorge Garza Sr. about children under 5 needing a ticket. Some of you all may have joined us at our last Facebook Live session, but I'm certainly happy to cover that for those of you that are new to this. But yes, per that session and per our instructions on our commencement website, every single guest, regardless of age, does require a ticket. And that is being requested not necessarily because of the number of seats available, but because of the number of people. We think of breathing noses and mouths that we're accommodating. So we arrange for the ceremony in a way that has a limited capacity. So it is about the number of people there, not necessarily the number of chairs. So everybody will need a ticket to enter the venue. Graduation slides will be accessible on the day of your commencement ceremony. So you can keep an eye out for that. You'll also be able to download your slide and keep it basically as a memento for you and your guests. Graduates don't necessarily need a guest ticket, but graduates do have something called the Grad Pass. And you will be receiving an email about the Grad Pass today in your utrgv email address. So please do pay attention to that, because that Grad Pass is basically your ticket to check in at graduation and to be seated and to walk across the stage. So without that Grad Pass, there won't be much of a commencement experience for you. So you want to make sure that you access it, given the instructions we're going to email today. You want to download it to your mobile device, and you may also choose to print your Grad Pass as a sort of backup. We won't have any cell phone chargers available at commencement, so do make sure that your mobile devices are fully charged. And just in case you should happen to lose battery, or maybe your phone runs an unexpected update, I know that always happens at the worst times, you can have a paper Grad Pass maybe in the case of your phone or in your pocket, something like that that you can hand to commencement staff to use for check-in. There will be photographers available as in previous ceremonies. That's questions from Rigo Ramos. And you will basically have an opportunity for 2 photographs taken at the ceremony. One will be as you cross the stage, and so that will be the first one. And then once you exit the stage, you'll be directed to another photography area where you'll have another kind of posed photograph taken. So one is a little bit action-ish, and the other one is after you cross the stage, and that one's a little bit more posed. And then just so that you all know, the photographer will reach out to you with your picture proofs. It does take a couple of weeks after the ceremony, but it is sent to your utrgv email address. So continue to check that email for updates from the photographer. And do know that your utrgv email address is active for 1 year following graduation. So you don't have to worry about the photographer not being able to email you. Just make sure that you log into your email and check for info. We have a question from Angela Garcia, who already printed the grad pass. That one is absolutely valid. It's okay. We just actually made these available today. So if you've already logged in and found the grad pass, congratulations. And you all get a gold star for being especially proactive. So again, we'll be sending more instructions about that. But as some of your peers may be demonstrating here, it's pretty self-explanatory. But again, we'll send instructions today about the grad pass. There is a question from Alondra about paying for parking. You do not have to pay for parking, nor do your guests. So all you have to do is basically give each other some time and celebrate together, but there's no cost associated with parking at commencement. Ms. Garcia is asking about how graduates will be seated at commencement, and I can cover that for a little bit as well. Basically, graduates will be seated by college. So at some ceremonies, the college graduates are so high in number that there may not be many colleges in that one particular ceremony. So you will be seated with your college, everyone together, and then you'll be seated in order of degree. From highest earned degree to lowest. So that basically means doctoral students will be seated ahead of master students, who will then be seated ahead of baccalaureate students. And then within those groups, students will not necessarily be alphabetized or grouped by major. So it's basically by college and by degree. There will be commencement staff available to help get you to your seat after you check in. So please just follow instructions from those staff so that you can make sure and get seated in the right areas. There are a couple of questions from Claire Rodriguez and Vanessa Coronado about parking. We will be sending out an email very specific to parking in the next couple of days, although parking information is already available on the commencement website. There are some designated parking areas, but they are not necessarily very close to the venue. And that's, of course, because we want to protect the safety of the pedestrians, whether it's you all as graduates, your guests, commencement staff, etc. So you will need to plan ahead for parking, wear comfortable shoes, and make sure that you plan enough time to walk from the parking lot to the designated commencement area. And the link to the parking area and the commencement map is being pasted there in the chat box. So you might want to bookmark that, right click on it, and access the appropriate maps for Brownsville and for Edinburgh. And then Ms. De La Torre is commenting about vault services. There will be vault services, which you all may remember are the golf carts that utrgv has. But of course, we're limited on the number that can be available at any one time. So we'll also take into consideration guests that maybe have more restricted mobility and might need a little bit more help getting to the venue. Let's say that other guests who are more able to get to the venue. So do keep that in mind. It's a service available, but it may not necessarily be something you can get at the exact moment that you want it or need it. Service dogs are definitely allowed, Ms. Infante. Of course, personal pets and anything like that wouldn't be allowed, but certainly service dogs that are needed by any guests are permitted. And yes, if you can bring the documentation, that will help anybody with our accessibility services team to know that it is permitted. The length of the ceremony, Christian Vance is asking about that. It really varies on the college. In some cases, we're expecting slightly more graduates than another one. So you can expect the ceremony to, on average, run anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half at the most. And again, a lot of that depends on how quickly we're able to get started and how quickly everybody kind of runs through the order of ceremonies. But do keep in mind as well that once you cross the stage and take your second photograph, graduates are asked to leave the venue. So, you know, somebody may be there only 40 minutes while somebody else may be there a little bit more than an hour. It just depends on how quickly you're called to the stage. Joel Jimenez is asking how you'll be called to the stage if it's not in order. So that's where commencement staff come into play. We do have designated seating for our graduates that, again, is organized by way of college and degree type. And commencement staff will lead people to the stage, basically row by row. So you won't approach the stage until you get a cue from one of our staff to go ahead and stand up and form a line toward the stage. I think I already answered about how long the actual ceremony is. Stole personalizations are permitted at this time, Hannah, so you can go ahead and account for that. As far as people being dropped off close to the venue, that's a great question that we got, and it kind of went quickly. So thank you, whoever posed that question. Roads closest to the ceremony will also be closed. So it won't be feasible to drop off a guest right next to the ceremony because the roads will be closed anyway. So again, plan ahead. The sooner you can get there, the sooner we can help try to get you to the ceremony if you do need the assistance of a vault, or again, it will allow for the foot traffic over to the venue. Check-in. So Christian Vance is asking about the time for check-in. That is 1 hour before the start of your ceremony. So as you can imagine, we have many start ceremonies, or many ceremonies, so various start times, but the rule of thumb is 1 hour before the start of the ceremony. We do ask that you proceed straight to the graduate check-in booth so that we can get you seated as soon as possible. Once we do get you seated, we ask that you remain seated because, again, we want to make sure that we're able to start on time. Given that there are many of you whose graduations we get to celebrate, we do have a schedule to adhere to. So do keep that in mind. And we do also ask that all graduates be seated 15 minutes before the start of the ceremony. So while check-in begins an hour before, it doesn't mean that it goes on the entire hour. We need all graduates checked in and accounted for and seated well ahead of the ceremony start time so that we can give you appropriate instructions. Ms. Jasmine Olivares, the graduation will be live streamed, and that is actually one of the formats that some of your peers have chosen to take advantage of for those who may have been uncomfortable attending in person. We do have the live ceremony being streamed, but we also have, I guess, the ceremony available completely online for some graduates and their guests. So anybody who maybe is not able to attend and you weren't able to get them a ticket from one of your four, you could always give them the live stream link and they will be able to see you cross the stage. Zane, I know you're asking whether graduates will need a ticket. It's not necessarily a guest ticket. It's a grad pass, a little bit of a different kind of ticket. So all graduates will need that to be able to check in at the ceremony and be seated and cross the stage. There is a question about umbrellas. So we know that some people may elect to use umbrellas, especially as they're walking from their vehicles to the commencement venue. But in the actual venue, once seated, umbrellas won't be permitted because it would block the view of other guests around them. And because of the social distancing that we're following, some guests will be seated much further from the stage than others. And the minute people begin to use umbrellas, we, of course, have an obstruction of vision. And so we want to make sure that we have a clear line of vision for all of our guests. So if umbrellas are taken, it is only to be able to use up until the start of the ceremony. For Lupita, asking about the grad pass, we will send an email this afternoon about the grad pass and the instructions to be able to access it. It is already available, and some of you I know have already logged in to the system and already gotten your grad pass. That's perfectly fine. It is still good. Just remember to have that grad pass available on your mobile device that is fully charged and ready to go, and definitely consider having a printed copy as a backup. We can scan from either your mobile device or from paper. More questions about the grad pass that I think I just answered. Correct. You don't have to print the ticket. It's just a suggestion, but whether it's your grad pass or your guest tickets, we can scan them either from a mobile device or on paper. There is a question about handicap seating, and we certainly recognize that some people will need help with accessibility. This is a good time for me to talk to you about guest seating arrangements. So remember that each graduate is allowed 4 guests and no more than that. And because of that, we need to basically be able to put those 4 chairs together so that your family and guests sit together, but stay socially distanced 6 feet apart from others. So you can think of these little groups of 4 people scattered throughout the venue and with enough space between them. So with that sort of space, we're able to accommodate anybody who might be in a wheelchair. So again, we'll have plenty of commencement staff on hand that can assist with arrangements like that. But there will be room next to any of those groups of 4 chairs for people to pull up a wheelchair or keep a walker, that kind of thing. So guests are allowed to bring flowers, Alondra, but balloons won't be permitted. And there is a list of items that are prohibited at the commencement ceremony that's been posted online. we can also post it here in the chat box for you all to see. But again, we do have items not allowed at commencement. It includes many things. In addition to that, noisemakers. So do inform your guests, because we'd hate for them to be surprised at the very last minute when they're trying to gain entry to the venue. That way they can leave things in their vehicle or at home for a private celebration afterwards. So Brianne Elise is asking if there will be separate links for the 2 separate graduations being held at the different campuses at the same time. So to be clear, at no one time do we have more than 1 ceremony taking place. We have designated days for different groups of graduates and our campuses. So there isn't necessarily a need to worry about accessing the wrong ceremony at any one given time. So I hope that helps you. So Ruth is asking about the slide and name being called as we walk. So you've heard me mention several times now the importance of that grad pass. Without that grad pass, we're not able to call your name, and we're not able to project your name and degree information as you cross the stage. So that's one of the triggers for it. So as that is scanned and you get ready to cross the stage, your name will be called, and your name and your degree information. And if you uploaded it, your picture and message will be displayed at the same time. You won't shake anybody's hand as you're crossing the stage. Again, we're making for as safe a ceremony as possible. So some of the details that you may have noticed from prior ceremonies won't all be followed this particular time, given ongoing concerns about COVID-19. Marcus is asking whether guests need to arrive together. It's not mandated, but it is highly, highly encouraged. Again, because each graduate's group of 4 people will be seated together. It'll be far easier if we can seat them together at once than them having to find each other if they arrive at separate times. So you may want to tell them to carpool if possible, or to make sure that they approach the line for guest check-in at the same time. I know we're getting lots of good questions about the grad pass. Again, no fear, you've not necessarily missed anything. We'll be sending out an email today about the grad pass. And pretty easy to navigate once you get in and grab that grad pass, and again, download it to your mobile device and consider printing a copy as well, just as a backup. A good question from Jessica Medina about changing the names of guests for tickets. That is absolutely allowed. We did email all participants last week with a little bit more information about the guest tickets. Those are accessible all the way up until the start of your ceremony, and you can, on an ongoing basis, change names on your guest tickets. So let's say maybe your uncle can no longer attend, so you're able to accommodate a friend instead. You can go update that in marching order. But what is very, very, very important for everyone to keep in mind is that your uncle really cannot show up, because if your uncle does end up showing up, then and arrives before your friend does, then when your friend's QR code is scanned, it is going to deny them access to the ceremony. So it's really important that you coordinate and communicate with your guests to make sure that no more than 4 guests attend. Otherwise, you could have guests who are turned away from the ceremony. And we want this to be a fun celebration for you all without any stress. So just make sure that you communicate that clearly to your 4 designated guests. Carrie Reyes is asking where to get the guest tickets. We did distribute guest tickets several weeks ago, and we sent email information about that last week as well. But those are also accessible within Marching Order, which is the site we use with our commencement partner. So that's where you would go for your guest tickets. There's a question from Joel Jimenez about rain, and I think there was another question about rain earlier as well. That is correct. Right now, the plan in the event of inclement weather would be to cancel the ceremony. Again, it is outdoors without tents, and the minute that it would be decided by safety experts, we would need to cancel the ceremony, again, due to rain. But thankfully, right now, the forecast looks very optimistic. And we're going to cross our fingers that everything goes really well and that we don't even have to worry about that. So let's all be hopeful for cooperative weather this weekend and next weekend for our 2020 graduates as well. Crystal Martinez is asking about strollers for infants and toddlers. Again, there is a list of prohibited items, and the strollers do get really tricky too. So please account for that in the items not allowed at commencement. so that your family or your guests have the proper help to help with some of those younger guests. If Auntie Les is asking about slides and pictures that were, if no slide or picture was submitted, what will show when we are called? So the good news is that everybody has a minimum of their name and basic degree information. So just because you don't have a photo or a personalized message that will be displayed doesn't mean nothing will be displayed at all. It would be the name that we have on record for you along with your basic degree information. The streaming link for this ceremony, Isabel, will be shared just prior to the ceremony. You'll be able to find it on the commencement website as well. So stay tuned, and that will be made available later this week. So Ceci Hernandez is asking about her and her sister who are graduating together from the same college and even the same degree and the same day and the same time, and is being asked if they'll be allowed to sit together even though their last names are different. So for those of you that may be joining late, I'll do a quick recap of what graduate seating will look like. Again, students will be seated in order of their college and then by degree type, so doctoral, master's, and bachelor's thereafter. And basically no alphabetization or major grouping will happen within those groups. So if you and your sister Ceci arrive at the same time, then we'll be able to sit you one right after another. Obviously, you wouldn't cross the stage at the same time, but you'll cross one after the other. And then the good news is that your guests will get to see you both at almost the same time, and you'll all be able to leave at the same time as well. For Edina Castañeda, yes, cap decoration is allowed. Please do be cognizant of guests around you. Nothing offensive, please, and nothing that would obstruct the vision of anyone around you. And thank you. I know my colleague Nicole posted the list of prohibited items at commencement in the chat box. Alondra, you're asking if the graduation video will be saved to access after. Absolutely it will. So if you choose to participate virtually, for example, and maybe you're not able to see it at the exact time you would have graduated, that is perfectly okay. You'll be able to access it on the website even after the ceremony. And the same goes for those of you who are graduating in person. If a couple of days later you have additional family you'd like to celebrate with, you want to have something maybe at home, you can access the ceremony and watch it again at a later time. I know there's a question from one of our graduates about family crossing the bridge from Matamoros or from Reynosa. I do not currently know what the status of crossing is. Last time I checked, it was for essential business, but we can definitely look into that and post an answer on our frequently asked questions on the commencement website. That's not, as you can imagine, not something that our office necessarily manages or has authority over, but we can see what information we can gather and share that with you all. Claire's asking where the live link will be. Again, it will be posted on the commencement website prominently on the day of commencement. So the commencement website is the best place to look for that. Alonso's asking if we print tickets out, do they have to match the person registered? This is a good opportunity for me to clarify that as guests are checking in, we are not necessarily checking their IDs. So if, for example, one of your tickets went to Patty, and let's say Patty doesn't end up attending and instead Susie has Patty's QR code, we're not going to deny access to Susie. But the reason it's important for you all to update your guest information is because in the event that we have to do any COVID-19 contact tracing, which obviously none of us hope will happen, but if we have to do that, we can accurately contact people and alert them to any concerns that we may have. So do keep that in mind. Please keep your guest information updated, but it won't necessarily be something used to deny someone entrance. The only thing that would deny somebody entrance is if they do not have a ticket or if their QR code is invalid because it was already scanned by another one of your guests who attempted to gain access to the ceremony beforehand. Max Bettis is asking about parking. Guests and students will all have the same designated parking areas. I know that those maps, or a link to those maps was posted within this chat box, but you can also find it on our commencement website. You definitely want to plan for the time and the walking from the parking lot to the designated commencement venue area, because again, the commencement venue does not have any parking immediately close by, and the roads around the commencement venue will also be closed in order to protect our pedestrians. So Jose is indicating that for his guests, he included Hotmail email addresses and would like to update that to Gmail email addresses. That's perfectly fine. What's important is that it's the best contact information that we could get a hold of them at. Let me see. Idelisa Salazar is asking about adding a picture. At this time, it is too late for any of our graduates to add pictures or personalized messages. The deadline for that was several weeks ago. And as you can imagine, with commencement just days away, we're unable to make any sorts of updates like that. We do partner with other commencement professionals to be able to organize this event. And at this point, unfortunately, logistically, it's not something that we can pull off. But again, just because you don't have a picture and a personalized message doesn't mean that you won't have your name and your degree information projected as you cross the stage. Looking for other questions I may not have answered yet. Yes, I know there was a question about the bookstore. Bookstores will be available on the day of commencement. And Dylan has indicated, Dylan, my commencement colleague, is also indicating that inventory is limited. And that is true, but also know that you would have to plan ahead for walking to the bookstore. And remember that we do have to start on time. So if you have any needs, we strongly suggest you take care of them while there's still time the next couple of days, as opposed to waiting for the day of. We know that sometimes accidents happen and you may lose your tassel or something like that walking from point A to point B, so they will be open. But for that reason, you may want to make sure that you have everything secured and together so that you don't miss any one piece of your regalia accidentally. Jose is asking about what roads will be closed. There are several roads that will actually be closed, including a part of Van Week. It's really the roads that are closer to the actual ceremony venue, no major road closures, but you can find all of those roads for both the Edinburgh and Brownsville campuses posted online. I know there's a question about when the email was sent for adding the picture. That was sent a little bit more than a month ago at this point, perhaps longer. But again, that deadline has passed, and those communications were targeted at students who had met our graduation application deadline. So online, we did post a series of deadlines that students would need to meet in order to hit all of the commencement milestones. And one of those was making sure that a graduation application was submitted in a timely manner. Regina is asking if students leave after walking through the stage. That's nearly correct. After walking the stage, you'll be directed to another area where professional photographs will be taken. And after that photo is taken, then you would go ahead and leave the venue. So you will not return to your seat after you cross the stage. So make sure you really limit the personal belongings that you have with you. I wouldn't take anything that you couldn't basically carry in your pocket because you won't be able to go back to your seat, and we would hate for you to lose any of those personal belongings. So Jasmine's asking about a link to view the ceremony and providing it to family members and to guests. Again, that will be posted publicly on our commencement webpage, and we will make sure to provide that information on the day of the ceremony, if not the day prior. In case any of you are joining a little bit late, there is a link there to items not allowed during the commencement ceremony. You may want to go ahead and click on that and save that and share it with your guests as well, because we've noticed that it's one thing for you all to be aware, but making sure that your guests informed is very helpful as well. It will keep them from wasting any time or even money that they don't necessarily have to. Christian Rosas is commenting that from the sounds of it, commencement will be quick. This will definitely be a little bit of a different kind of ceremony. And again, the length of the ceremony will differ for students depending on how quickly you're called to the stage. So if, for example, you're a doctoral candidate, you'll certainly be amongst the first to go, and you will likely be there for 40 minutes or less. But bachelor students, especially those who arrive later than others, would be the last to leave the ceremony. Zeke is asking about buying a cap and gown. Those are available at the bookstore. I don't know what inventory is like at this point, but we definitely urge you to address that sooner than later. And just as a reminder, regalia is required to participate in commencement. So without a cap and gown, you will be unable to cross the stage. So please make sure that you take care of that before your ceremony. Lily's asking about taking a mask off for photographs. And I know that's a question we got last time during Facebook Live as well. Again, while this ceremony is outdoors, it is still a highly populated event. And for that reason, we are still asking that you all wear your masks, and that includes for photographs. So do please plan accordingly. If you would like to decorate your masks or use a utrgv face mask, even better, to notate your commencement day, that is perfectly fine. So Denise is asking if the date of the ceremony can be changed. It cannot at this point. We did require all participants to RSVP several weeks ago, and we used that information to plan basically when to have each ceremony, how long it would be, how many students we could accommodate, and how many guests we could accommodate. So we are committed to those numbers based on that RSVP data. So ceremony switches at this point are not allowed. Erica, who's hopped on, is asking if students will be called alphabetically. So a quick recap of that. Students will not be seated alphabetically. They'll be seated according to their college and then their degree type, doctoral, master's, and bachelor's. And then after that, students will be seated basically in the order that they arrive. So if you have a friend that you would like to graduate in close proximity to, you can arrive with a friend and one of you would cross the stage right after the other. And then you could leave the ceremony. I know we've gotten another question about families needing to cross the bridge and guests. The best contact for that would be International Student Services. I don't have current information on that, and even then they would be most up to date on that. So do contact International Student Services if you have questions about guests who may need to cross the bridge. Jasmine's asking whether masks would be provided for graduates. So we will have masks available, but remember that you still need a mask to be on campus and to walk from the parking lot to the venue. So do plan ahead and make sure that you're masked up to keep yourself and your family safe. There's a question from Denise Nicole about whether or not how students would know if they RSVP'd. It is a pretty specific set of procedures that were emailed quite some time ago, and students had a deadline by which to RSVP, and RSVPs were mandatory for students to participate in commencement. So if you have not received confirmation of your RSVP or information about tickets, then it is more unlikely that you did not RSVP. Denise Nicole's also asking questions about audits for credit. So all of our graduates do undergo a degree audit process, and that is basically to make sure that all of your degree requirements are being met and that you are entitled to earn the degree that you have been pursuing. So information does go out from our degree audit systems and support team. So updates will happen sometimes if you have additional credit that was earned, let's say through CLEP exams, or perhaps a transcript that you just recently sent that allowed for transfer credit from another institution. All of those things can change the amount of progress you've made towards your degree. So if you have more information about that, you can reach out to the degree audit systems and support team at certification@utrgv.edu. Stephanie Salinas is indicating that she's not received the grad pass. So just as clarification, we've not emailed anybody about the grad pass yet. Some of you were able to access the grad pass earlier just by being kind of proactive and maybe looking around on the website. That is perfectly fine. But emails will go out today with specific instructions about the grad pass. That is needed by all participants at commencement for our 2021 ceremonies this week and all our 2020 ceremonies next week. So I think there's a question from Justin Jacob Elizalde about a middle name being added. So if your official record in Assist does not spell out your middle name, we did have a period of time when we were updating middle names. At this point, though, with only a couple of days left, I'm not certain we'll be able to get to any kind of cosmetic changes like that, but you can email commencement at utrgv.edu about a middle name request. And we can cross our fingers together that that's a change that is able to be made. But do understand, too, that any of those cosmetic tweaks at this point in time may not be possible given the amount of logistics that have already been planned for, and that includes, for example, your grad pass, your guest tickets, your slide that will be projected as you cross the stage. So there are many moving parts that limit our ability to make changes at the last minute. Jessica's asking whether students will be seated in alphabetical order. Again, students will not be seated in alphabetical order. They'll be seated according to their college and then according to degree type, doctoral, master's, and then bachelor's. Within those groups, students will not necessarily be grouped by alphabet or by their major. Christian Rosas is asking about the stole. So there is a utrgv stole that is common to all graduates that is used. The stole itself is not necessarily representative of the college that you graduate from. And Justin Jacob, I'm able to see your follow-up question about the diploma. This is a good time for me to talk briefly about diplomas. When you get ready to cross the stage, you will be handed a diploma tube, and you will carry that across the stage. We recommend that once you get to the middle of the stage where your photograph will be snapped, you have the diploma tube visible for the photographer to get a good picture of. There is a letter in the diploma tube. There is no diploma yet, as you can imagine, because grades aren't due until next week. So we still have to cross our fingers together that you meet all your degree requirements. But diplomas are typically mailed out 4 to 6 weeks following the close of commencement ceremonies. And again, that's to make sure that we allow ample time to make sure all degree requirements were met. And as far as the name that goes on the diploma, we do have a little bit more breathing room for that. So again, you can email us directly about that, Justin. I think that also addresses a question from Jasmine Olivares. You don't get your actual degree as you cross the stage because, again, grades are not officially due yet. Your instructors still have time to enter in grades through this week up until next Monday. And even if they submitted grades, they still have the chance to change grades if there's a recalculation that needs to happen or anything like that. So we don't jump ahead on those diplomas until we know everything's official. Alfredo Morales is asking about a photographer being available for the ceremony. There will be professional photographers on hand to take your picture as you cross the stage, and then right after you cross the stage, you'll pose for a photograph, and then they will contact you using your utrgv email address with photo package purchase opportunities and things like that. Again, it's not mandatory. That is a purchase you can choose to make, but do also understand that guests will not be permitted near the stage. They also won't be allowed to stand in the aisles or the guest seating area. So your best bet is going to be to post for those professional photographs. Otherwise, you can arrange for photographs with your family somewhere on campus, either days before the ceremony or after your ceremony as you all head back towards your vehicles. Lizette's asking that if the ceremony is canceled due to weather, whether it will be postponed. The ceremony will be canceled and not postponed at this time. So thankfully, the weather looks good this week and even next week. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that it cooperates the entire time. Rosie Mayorga is asking how she's supposed to know which ceremony to attend, given that different colleges go at different times. All the ceremony times are posted online at our commencement website, but you'll also see on your grad pass your designated ceremony day and time. So that is the one that you will attend. Again, it's really important that you attend the one that is included on that, which matches what you RSVP'd for. And for Joey Quintanilla, there is a map available for guests and graduates of the ceremony, where it's going to be held on campus, which parking lot, which roads are closed, and where you can park for guests and graduates. So that is actually right now posted on our chat box, so you can take a look at it there. I think that also answers the question from Ronnie Recio about where family members can park. Basically, family and graduates would park in the same areas, and we do have designated areas on our maps that are posted online. Jacob is asking about photography packages and whether they need to be purchased in advance before the ceremony or afterwards. The good news is that it's afterwards, and I say that because I know I'm not always the most photogenic, so you get to pick and choose which of the two pictures you liked, or maybe you liked both of them, but that will be entirely up to you after the ceremony. Jennifer is asking how students' names will be correctly called if you are not listed alphabetically. You've heard us mention a couple of times that grad pass. That grad pass is critical for you all to have accessible at all times, because the grad pass is scanned right before you cross the stage, and that's what allows us to call your name at the appropriate time and for your name and degree information to be projected as you're crossing the stage. So you must have that grad pass at all times for your ceremony to go as smoothly as possible. I think Christian was commenting to another colleague that it looks like the days will be hot. That is true. It is May and we are in the valley. So again, important for you and your guests to wear clothing that is light and will keep you cooler than not. I know we're nearing the very end of our session, and I appreciate all of you being here to ask really good questions. The best advice I can give you kind of in closing is for you to pay very close attention to your utrgv email address. We did last week commence a series of emails called Know Before You Go. So today, in the next couple of days, you'll be receiving additional emails with the subject line that starts Know Before You Go. And today there will be information about the grad pass. Then we'll be sending an email about what the ceremony looks like from start to finish, so your guests can kind of know what happens first, what happens next, and then what happens towards the end. We'll send another Know Before You Go email that is very specific about parking, and then we'll send one more with just a couple of last-minute reminders and updates about commencement. So the best thing you can do is pay attention to your email, read it really thoroughly. We do see that the questions we tend to get a lot in our office email are answered in the frequently asked questions on the Commencement website or on the Commencement website. So those are your biggest resources this week for information about Commencement, is our Commencement webpage and your own email inbox. I know Marcus is asking if coolers are allowed, so no coolers and no ice chests, please. The ceremony will go faster than you realize, so do keep that in mind, but no coolers and no ice chests. For Jose Quintanilla, do one last question. The veteran stole is absolutely acceptable, and thank you for your service if you'll be wearing one of those as one of our country's veterans. But thank you all again for being here. Again, I know that there will be other questions, but chances are very high that we'll be answering those questions in your utrgv email addresses over the next couple of days. So please log into those, check the information we're sending you, look at the commencement information webpage, including parking areas. We've really put a lot of effort into making sure that we communicate as much of that as possible to you all in advance to share with your guests. So again, we really urge you to visit our commencement webpage at this point and share it with your friends and with your family. And we want to give you all a sincere congratulations. We're really excited about having commencement ceremonies this week and next week. And so we look forward to seeing you all with big smiles on. So thank you all for joining us today.